and gentlemen, it's time once again for the Paranormal Portal live stream. How you guys doing? Welcome to Saturday. It's our last live stream of the week, and the time really flies, but what do you do? It's probably just because I'm getting older, and that's how it works. But hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend, and thank you so much for coming and joining me here and hanging out right here on the portal with me. That's always a huge honor, and I hope you leave here wildly entertained and absolutely convinced you need to come back over and over again. And so get subscribed or follow or whatever it is, whatever you're watching, whatever platform you're watching on. Everybody's got their own term for it, but I'd love for you to be a part of the family. Come be a portal people. Why not? What else you got going? But good to see all you guys coming into the chats. And I have the great pleasure of introducing you guys to a friend of mine, and he's decided to come hang out with me here on the show tonight. And we're going to take a journey down. I had to rephrase that in my head because that was going to come out all wrong. I was like, we're going to take a journey down his rabbit hole, and that's not going to work at all. So we're going to take a journey in his world and experience. And I am speaking, of course, of Mr. Brandon Wright, who is creator and host of Tinfoil Tales podcast. How you doing, brother? Welcome.
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and hope you're doing good. Thanks for coming on tonight. I don't know what your bedtime is, but I appreciate you extending it a little bit for me.
No, I'd already be in bed.
Would you really?
No.
Well, that's okay.
I wish I have dreams that I could go to sleep that early.
Yeah, me too. I'm a late night person, actually. So I'm not much of a morning person, but it's good to have you here, man. And good to see all you guys coming in. Just please make yourself at home. And don't worry about the ghost radar. We're not using the ghost radar tonight. We're just going to focus on Brandon and his stories, and we're going to let him take us on a journey tonight. But Brandon, I kind of got to start where I always start on interviews. And that is, where did this start for you? Where did this journey all begin?
The truth of the matter is it started for me in February of 2007. It was February 9th, 2007. And I've told this story before on other podcasts or everything, but the gist of it is, and I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
The thing that happened was we were leaving work. There was a guy driving in front of me, and he swerved to miss something. And I had to swerve to miss it too. We couldn't tell what it was. It was like a large black shape in the road. Well, we turned around and went back, and I seen what appeared to be a large black dog in the road, but it was laying down.
Oh.
And for some reason, I'm stupid, and I got out of the vehicle to walk up to it because I'm thinking it's a dead dog.
Right.
Except it stood up like a person.
Oh, God.
And then it walked off on its hind legs, but it was in like a weird crouched down position. So obviously there's more to the thing than that's just like I said, the quickest version of it. But
yeah,
the coworker swore it was just a normal dog. He didn't want to talk about it. I said, okay, whatever, it was just a normal dog. And I sat on it for like 15 years of just saying it was a normal dog because it didn't have the typical werewolf hands or any of the other. It looked like a normal black wolf. Like everything about it looked like a normal wolf, except it stood up like a person and looked at me.
Wow.
So, I don't know how to describe that, and I'm kind of a skeptic about a lot of this stuff, so it's hard to rationalize something when you don't necessarily believe in a lot of it.
Right.
And for some reason, I never talked about it because people are going to think you're crazy. Like I said, it's some stuff to a couple people, but I just sat on it because, again, who's going to believe that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I knew nothing about podcast or anything like this. I used to be in a band. I was all the music guy and everything else. So I didn't really think a whole lot about anything podcast wise. But then when 2020 happened, I kind of started listening to podcasts because the world was kind of shut down at the time. And I was like, you know what? I want to start a podcast. I want to talk about weird stuff like aliens and cryptids and everything. So I just kind of come up with the name. I just sat on the idea, and it wasn't until like 2022 when I finally said, I'm going to start with it. But
that's cool. So with this creature, just to go back to that quick, just to give everybody an idea, if they haven't heard this story before, how close were you when it kind of stood up and decided to just walk off?
I was probably 15 feet. So my vehicle headlights were shining directly on it, and my coworker's vehicle was behind me. So I don't know what all he saw because he was still in his vehicle. He never got out until after it left.
Mm-hmm.
But he was yelling at me to get back in the vehicle right after it stood up. So I'm assuming from the explicitives and the names that he was yelling at me to get back in the vehicle, that he probably saw it stand up too. But after it left, he got out and I got out. And as we were talking about what the hell was this? And there was a field mouse standing on its hind legs between us. Which is, that's the weirdest thing to me, is because I actually touched the mouse with my shoe. I pushed it, and it didn't care that I touched it.
Really?
So to me, I don't understand. Like, mouse could have just been dazed, could have been like eating poison or something, could have been dying. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was all wet, and I rationalized this as the dog was probably eating the mouse or playing with it and got hit by a car and it broke its legs. And that's why it was hopping around on its back legs, trying to stand up like a person because it was just an injured animal. As dumb as that sounds, that's how I've tried to rationalize it, because I didn't know. I thought of a werewolf at the time because I didn't know what Dogman was. I never even heard of Dogman until after all of this.
Right.
So that's just how I've tried to rationalize it for all those years. And then when I started listening to podcasts, I came across Wes's show, and then the first episode that he had on there was a Dogman episode.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that's kind of what really got me into wanting to do a podcast about this type of stuff. I was like, I didn't realize people actually talked about this stuff, because I was looking for podcasts to try and get ideas, because I didn't assume anyone talked about the stuff that I wanted to talk about. And I realized that literally everyone's talking about this type of stuff. So it's like my original idea is not very original.
Yeah. Welcome to the club of all of us talking about this stuff. But, you've done an exceptional job with your show. And I think it stands out as one of the better shows out there for sure. I mean, you ought to be very proud of that. But for you, having this experience of your own, deciding to dive headfirst into it, how has this journey transformed you?
It's taken me to the point to where I used to not want to talk about this type of stuff publicly, to now I'm just open about it.
Yeah.
And I said it never affected me, but I wouldn't be here talking to you if it didn't have some sort of effect on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So me saying that it never had a problem or I didn't think about it or whatever, that it kind of haunts you, because I still think about it almost every day. It's like, what in the hell was it? Like, was it really a dog?
Yeah.
Like, the reason I do this show is because I want answers. And the more I've done this show in the last 3.5 years now, I'm not getting answers. I'm getting more questions.
I know. Yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm moving any closer to the truth either. It feels like you said, I guess, the more you go into this, the more you realize what we don't know and how much we don't know about any of this. But one other question about this Dogman standing up. How tall would you guess it was?
I'm 6'3", and we were basically eye to eye.
Oh,
so
yeah.
At least over 6 feet tall.
Wow. Yeah, that's plenty big enough. Did you have the ability to, or do you recall seeing the hands or paws, or did
it had normal dog paws?
It did. Okay.
It didn't have the typical, like everyone says, like raccoon fingers and everything else.
Yeah.
It didn't have that.
Okay.
And as much as I wish it was just a bear, a black bear, it wasn't a bear either, because I know what the difference between a bear and a canine is. Like, this 100% looked like a normal black wolf with like puffy fur, almost like chow dog puffy fur. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And it had a big bushy tail, which
okay.
I didn't really think about as being important.
Mm-hmm.
So people would ask me after I said something about, like, well, did it have a tail? I was like, I mean, I guess. And I had to sit there and think about it. I was like, I remember when it was laying there, I saw a big, like almost like a curled puffy tail to it.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently dogmen don't have tails. I was like, okay, I didn't know that, but then I've heard that they do. So I don't know. Again, people there's a lot of experts out there that want to tell you everything or what you experienced or what you saw, but no one actually has verifiable proof of what's actually out there or not. But we have people that are experts in that field.
Yeah, and you got to wonder. It's like with Bigfoot. Definitely, there seems to be several versions, if you will, of Bigfoot. There's the ones that look very much like an ape. There's ones that look very much like a person, and then there's some that look more like some Neanderthal hybrid, in between. And I wonder about that all the time. Is this an example of biodiversity? Like when you look at our population, certainly I look very different to someone in maybe Asia, that's like even an equal age and stuff, but physically and characteristically we would be very unique to each other. And I know that that's a biodiversity of Homo sapien. So is it possible then that with these other classifications or, possible types of beings, that they would also have an expressive biodiversity as well? Or are they offshoots of the tree? And I'm not really asking you for an answer, but that's certainly a consideration in all of this, because the witness testimonies vary a lot sometimes. And you don't want to be the person to go, well, you didn't say what matched with these people, so you're wrong.
Right.
We can't really be the arbiters of truth, on this stuff. But it is confusing, isn't it?
If you listen to what people talk about when it comes to dogman encounters and when they talk about Bigfoot encounters or any sort of like weird paranormal encounters with something, a lot of the time you will find out there are similarities between certain things, but there's also different characteristics between different people's remembering of the events that happened.
Sure.
So say you had a group of people that all saw something and you ask every single person, each one might have a little different recalling of how an event happened. So I've thought about this when people don't necessarily agree with what they saw, or when someone else seen something and described it a little bit differently. Maybe that's just because their brain only remembers so much of the detail.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a very good point. Or they took in different details, and so that becomes the paramount thing that they saw. Yeah, that is a good point. Perception is a huge part of this for sure.
Like for me, when I saw the thing, I was not afraid, which a lot of people claim, oh, it's not true. He wasn't afraid. Anyone saw that would be afraid. I was like, no, I was just confused because I'd never seen a dog stand up like that before. Like in my mind, I'm still thinking it's a dog,
Yeah.
Like I'm not thinking of it being a weird cryptid dog man or werewolf or anything at that point until like it stood up. I was like, to me, I thought it was just a hurt normal dog. I don't know.
So now, if this encounter had not occurred then, but had occurred today with the knowledge you have, do you think you would have looked at the whole experience way differently?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I probably would, first of all, would have not gotten out of my vehicle.
Yeah.
And looking back now, and I say this jokingly, but I think if this was to ever happen again, I want to see it now because I want answers. Yeah. But I've said to myself, I wish I would have just kept driving. I wish we wouldn't have turned around and went back to try and figure out what was walking in the road. Because the first thing that was walking in the road looked like, I didn't see arms. I didn't see a head on it. It was just a large black torso. And that's the first thing my coworker said when I pulled up next to him is, did you see that? It didn't have a head. And that's why I wanted to go back. I was like, I thought it was like a drunk person or something wrapped in a blanket or a big black cloak or something strolling down the road at like 4:30 in the morning because
sure,
I didn't know what would have been on two legs. So when we went back, there was nothing on two legs. There was just this dog laying in the middle of the road. And we're right by a highway. Like it's literally right by one of the main highways through Indiana, like right up 31. Mm-hmm. So we're less than like a quarter mile away from the highway. So in my opinion, there wouldn't be any type of thing out here because I've lived out here my whole life. I've never heard of anything like this or seen anything like this up until that point.
Mm-hmm. What about like, and this is, I don't know, just throwing it out there because this is something that occurs to me, but what do you think about the possibility that it could have been a skinwalker?
We'll get into that here in a little bit.
Okay. All right. We'll unpack that later. Fine. That's good. And ladies and gentlemen from the chat, feel free to ask questions if you want. Just like as you're seeing, some people are capitalizing their questions. That's the best way to get our attention. But there is a question. You said, Brandon, it's okay to ask questions throughout the interview. Is that right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because we got one here. Besides from the unknown in our chat, he said, besides walking on two legs, did it look backwards? Did it look natural on two legs, or awkward is what he said. He meant awkward. Does it look awkward, or did it look like it was natural on two legs?
When it stood up directly, it stood up like a human. Okay. So that part looked almost like someone in a costume. That looked normal, but when it walked away, it walked off in a weird crouch position, like it brought its front arms up to its chest.
Oh.
And it was down in like a hunkered position, like it was trying to take it like a crap or something, but it walked over like sideways, almost like in like someone said, kind of like a crab. I was like, I mean, maybe. I was like, I guess that's a way to describe it. It just didn't look normal.
Okay, gotcha. So it was just far removed from anything you'd ever seen before. Yeah.
That's why I thought it was hurt, like its front legs were broken. The way it was walking was unnatural.
Sure. No.
Man,
that is crazy. So you start doing the show. Now you're starting to talk to people and hear of more experiences. What was that like for your worldview?
It wasn't up until sometime last year, honestly, that I started getting more people reaching out. And a lot of it was because I'd been on Wes's show at one point, but I went on Tony from the confessionals. He reached out to me about September of last year, and he asked me if I wanted to be on an episode. So I actually drove down to Tennessee and recorded with him in studio. And then that's when a lot of people started reaching out to me.
Oh,
because they saw his episode with me and they're like, oh, I'm from the area. But before I went on his show, I started digging around because we were going to talk about a lot of the weird stuff, because I'd done a couple of in-person events around here. And I've had people come up and tell me that they saw something similar.
Oh.
And come to find out, one of the people that came to the event told me, well, they had one on the east side of town. I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of went to that area. I know exactly where it's at. Well, then I spoke at another event and some other person said they had one too in that same area. And then I got a message from someone on Facebook that told me to check out an episode of Vic's show because someone was talking about having an experience in Peru. It's in the same location as these other people's locations. So there's 3 different people that have had experiences in this one specific spot. And then I started to look around a little bit more, and I've talked to some more people. More people have had stuff in there. And then when I went on Tony's show, I've had people send me pictures of giant dog tracks or canine tracks. I say dog, but they have their normal dog footprint and then this huge one next to it.
Oh, wow.
And a month after this guy had sent these, or he took these photos, they were time-stamped. I got on the Bigfoot Mapping Project app. Someone reported seeing a Bigfoot in the same area literally a month later. They said something large and black walked across the road. I was like, well, who said it was actually a Bigfoot if there's already a bipedal-looking canine walking in the area, too?
Yeah, exactly. Now, wow, that's really wild. So you found out that this is much more common.
Apparently. And I started to dig more into the area and come to find out, like, this has been going on for a very long time. This whole area used to be part of the Miami, like that's what they call themselves, the Miami Indians. I know we call them Native Americans, but.
Sure.
Excuse me. But the tribe around here lived in this area. And I got to get a drink.
Yeah, go ahead. Good. Yeah, just keep the questions in capitals. That really helps me to see them, guys. So keep it coming.
But basically, the Native American people that were here years ago, and I've actually tried to talk to some of them. I've talked to one of the guys, but some of their old stories and stuff I've been digging into, and the name of the lake that we have here is called the Missinawal. It was a man-made lake. They turned it into a reservoir. And the actual river system for the Missinawal River, I've been digging into it, and it has a lot of different people talking about seeing Bigfoot or quote-unquote werewolves on the river.
Wow.
And then there's been a lot of murders on the river, which is weird. But back in 1812, the U.S. Army came through and wiped out most of the tribe. And they put them, the ones that survived, on the Trail of Tears and sent them out to Oklahoma. So the Miami that's in Oklahoma is actually originally from here.
Oh, okay.
Starting to lose my voice. Figures.
That's intense.
So not only do we have a lot of weird stuff, I've looked into it. There's been tons of Bigfoot sightings that people have reported. And again, it's all along the same area. I started posting in like local Facebook groups, and people have reached out to me from that and talked about some of the things there too. But there's also a lot of UFO reports. Oh. And someone that I'm friends with sent me a video last summer, and just so happens to be over the same exact location where these people have been seeing werewolves. There's a UFO flying over there, and in the video, it's long and almost like cigar shaped, and it's silent. Oh, but yeah. I don't know what it would have been.
Yeah.
And it's right over the same exact area, which is ironically the area that they've turned into the Circus Hall of Fame. So,
really? Okay.
Peru is known for the amateur circus, and back in the 1800s, Benjamin Wallace started buying a bunch of circus stuff to do like traveling circus shows, and they used to house all of the circus equipment in this town. So it brought in a lot of different types of people involved with the circus, like Barnum and Bailey Circus was here, and E.T. Barnum. So as I've been digging into stuff, where they stored all this stuff used to be where the original Miami's, one of the villages, like the main village hub.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead.
And where the hub is, like for that village, they started storing all the circus stuff there. Well, in 1911, there was a huge flood that came through and destroyed most of the circus stuff and killed most of the animals. Some of the animals supposedly escaped, which were big cats. So I've thought like maybe some of the things that people were seeing were like some of these big cats, but you still wouldn't get bipedal from a big cat.
Yeah. That's incredible.
So there's just a lot of weird history just in this one specific area.
That's really profound because, you know, you think of like, I know Indiana is right next to Ohio where everything exists as well. And they have no shortage of anything, but it really does seem like a melding pot for all kinds of craziness, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of paranormal stuff too. Like the actual area where I've been out to, there's a hot spot that they call it Okefenokee. I don't even know where the name came from. I've tried to figure that out, but apparently it was just coined by somebody.
Sure.
But they used to have, I guess back in the 80s and early 90s, supposedly it was like satanic panic crap was going on out there. People were like doing seances and devil worshiping and everything.
Sounds like a perfect storm for all kinds of weirdness.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of weird stuff with it.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that there certainly sounds like there's some kind of maybe it's a ley line thing or there's some natural portal thing going on, and it's all speculation. But when you hear about areas like this where there's kind of something for everybody, there's hauntings, there's UFOs, there's cryptids, and more. God only knows what else. I always think about those as being, are those some of those portal areas that they're talking about? These convergences or vertexes of where a lot of energy lines come together, and that's just the weirdness place. I don't know. It seems like there are, like Skinwalker Ranch, for example, is another weird place. The whole Uinta Basin is just strange, and there's everything over there too.
I've thought a lot about this lately, and if you look at the Bridgewater Triangle,
Yeah.
there is a lot of similarities to that there is here. So if that stuff happens out there and is happening here, maybe some of the other areas have the similar disturbances too. Like, are these high areas of energy where it's somehow channeling a lot of these instances? Like, are they all supernatural events? Are they all paranormal events?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's just weird that, like, that's all centralized in certain locations.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I was just in the Bridgewater Triangle a few weeks ago over there in Massachusetts, and didn't have any experiences really. We did investigation stuff, but it was neat to be there. Now I could say I've been in the Bridgewater Triangle, but that's where Hometown Ghost Stories is located. Those guys live out there, but very cool place. There is a question in the chat from Rachel. I'm just trying to get to these questions. Was there any smell like a dog smell or its breath? As it's a large animal, it would seem to take deep breaths. Did you hear any breathing or catch a smell with this experience?
I didn't smell anything, and the only thing that I recall that was weird is it was really quiet. Like, there was almost like a dead silence to the area, which is strange, especially being by a highway, but it was early in the morning too.
Yeah.
Because it was in February, the air is a lot colder, so you can kind of pick up more smells. At least I usually can.
Yeah.
And I don't remember smelling anything.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. T-Bone asked a question, is there any UFO sightings, Brandon? But you've kind of addressed that a little bit. But is there quite a bit of that up there, or is it just kind of an oddity here and there?
I'm working on writing a lot of this stuff out to try and make like a little book about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got tons of UFO sighting reports. So I found one, and again, I can't verify it, but it was supposedly back in the late 1800s.
Really? Okay.
The other thing that we have here is strange is we have a military base, and it's no longer active. It's like just a reserve base, but they built it back in 1942, I think it was. And they used it to train pilots for World War II. So they even had like different pilots from different countries come over, and they were training them for combat.
Mm-hmm.
It became a big refueling station. The only reason they chose this area is because supposedly it was flat ground and easy access to get anywhere else in the country. But I've started to think like the reason they built the dams and stuff was because of the flood. But if you talk to other people, and there's certain areas around here that are like considered sacred to the original tribes people, they claim these areas all had very high energy fields, and the water systems were their way of life. And a lot of the stuff that was being done here had like all sorts of high like energy stuff. And that is why the military got involved in one of the lands, because they took over a lot of the land that used to be the Native American land. And it's still federal land.
Do you think it's maybe an attempt to overwrite that in a sense? I realize that's kind of a weird thing to say, but just it's kind of funny that all this stuff would be happening on this once sacred space.
One of the guys that I took out, he took us to their sacred place. It's called Seven Pillars. And if anyone's listening, you can look up Seven Pillars, Miami County, Indiana, and you'll see it. There's these natural rock formations along the riverbank, and it's really cool looking. It's very, like, I don't want to say unnatural looking, but it's mystical. They claim this is one of their holy sites. They used to have ceremonies there, and they still own it. They actually gave it back to the Miami, like they bought it back. So now it's like off limits to most people unless you have permission to go out there. But we went out there, and he'd brought up on the way out there that maybe some of the stuff that people are seeing were things that were conjured by their old medicine men. So the shamans or whatever they were back in those days. And they're protective spirits. They used to summon spirits. So maybe these things that people experience or seeing, like the Bigfoots or the dogmen or anything like that, were actually something that was supposed to protect the lands from the armies and the other invading tribes, because they didn't just fight with the army for hundreds of years. They were fighting with the other tribes that were coming through here, because when the white settlers came over, they were pushing all the ones from east, like out east, this direction out towards Indiana. So everyone kept migrating towards the west. So they had more and more tribes coming through here. And someone had said that one of the tribes had talked about they summoned these wolf people, these wolf spirits, to avenge them, like to protect the lands and everything. Well, this guy was actually from the tribe, had said that maybe these things are the spirits that they had summoned, but since the tribes are no longer here, they're just roaming around because they have nothing, like they're still protecting the lands, because the people that summoned them have never been able to let them leave.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like they were never released.
Right.
Ah, good point.
So they still are lurking around, because this one area that's had a lot of Bigfoot activity is the old battleground where the actual War of 1812 like took place, where one of the tribes was at when they came through and burnt down the village.
Oh.
They have a reenactment out there. And I've talked to 2 or 3 different people that have had Bigfoot encounters out there. One was actually out there for paranormal stuff. They were trying to like do a ghost hunt and end up having a Bigfoot experience rather than a ghost experience.
Yeah, that's funny.
But when it comes to like UFO stuff, because of the base, I've always thought that maybe people were just seeing stuff from the Air Force base, and a lot of it can be wrote off. But when I started looking into some of these things that they were talking about, some of the things that they've reported, a lot of it is stuff that goes on today. Like we still see orange orbs quite a bit, and people see them in the tree lines. Well, that's kind of like ghost lights, of what people have just started calling them, like the orange orbs that they see walking around almost like a lantern.
Sure.
Floating around in like the woods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I used to think they were like flares, but there's been so many people seeing these things. So are we all just misidentifying something in the sky?
Right.
Or is there something more to it? Because again, a lot of this all centralizes in the same exact area.
That's interesting. I was just thinking about the fact that due to declassification of a lot of old CIA files and stuff, there's no question that the CIA and government entities were very involved with weird research into esoteric stuff, into paranormal stuff, into magic and all that. I don't know. I don't want to say craziness, but those different observations. And then, as you brought up, like they put a base on this place, which was once sacred, and it just makes me wonder if they weren't doing that on purpose to secure these known hotspot kind of lands, these places that held a high energy, as you were explaining, and that's where they maybe did a lot of experiments into tapping into these other forces and seeing what they could find. I don't know. What do you think of that?
That's kind of the route that I started to lean down to, because even when you consider stuff like Skinwalker Ranch, originally owned by like Bigelow, who's an aerospace type person.
Yep.
And even like, I forget where it's at, but there's another base not too far from an area that has a lot of different type of activity too. And if you look at, some of the military bases, people see a lot of Bigfoot stuff too.
Sure.
Like on the outskirts.
Yes.
So it's like, why are they choosing these areas? Like let's just say Bigfoot's a normal creature out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
If you're around a military base, well, there's a lot of people around there. It just seems a little strange that people are seeing Bigfoot around something that's like active with like a lot of people. That's just my perception to it. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we got kind of a side comment in here from Supernatural Stations. Brandon, what's your favorite cryptid and why? Also, any life experiences that brought you here?
I guess my favorite cryptid, a lot of people would think would be Dogman, but I'm going to go with probably Bigfoot, just because that was always the thing that I've always thought of as a kid, was always like Bigfoot.
Sure.
But as far as the life experiences, I mean, just the stuff that I've kind of already alluded to a little bit here and there. For the most part, like I don't have a whole lot of life experiences outside some of the weird paranormal things here and there that I don't really talk about too much.
Sure. Gotcha. Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack everything with that, but it was just,
Very good.
I'm just scrolling through the chat here as we're going and finding the questions so I can ask you. But I'm just trying to catch up. Oh, Bigfoot Crossroads is hanging out too. Mr. Matt Knapp, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. Great, he's just hanging out too. We could have done a panel show, had both of you guys on at the same time. That'd have been fun. Just looking to see if there's any other questions. But I do think that there's merit to that these sites were chosen on purpose for some reason or another. And you're right. The Bigfoot phenomena around military bases is almost epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like all over the place. Like did they just randomly find those places and, oh, look, there's Bigfoot here? Or did they choose those places because there's Bigfoot here? And you would think it would be contrary, because not only are there a lot of people at bases, but things like explosions and range testing and all that stuff that you think they'd be like, get the hell out of here. But when you listen to like Todd Neese's story, being in the military and doing demolition testing and stuff, that the Bigfoot came right to a place where they just tested. There was like 3 Bigfoot standing there when they drove back through. And it's, you'd think it would be contrary to that, but I suppose they probably get curious with what's going on.
I talked to someone back in the spring, and he had mentioned something about how they were doing some sort of like, it wasn't training, but they were just out on like duty for the weekend, and they never saw it, but they heard something. And they believe, well, he believes it was a Bigfoot just because of the way the activity is going. And I talked to someone before, and it makes sense to me. If you had Bigfoot activity in your house, most likely you would see you have poltergeist activity. Yeah. And now you put poltergeist out in the woods and people call it Bigfoot. So ever since he said that, I've thought about it. I was like, he actually has a point, because if you had poltergeist, you might see things move. You might hear some knocks. You might see things here or there, like a shadow or something like that. Out in the woods, you might hear a knock or a noise, or a rock gets tossed or something. You know what I mean? So it does make sense. Like, there are similarities between what people are claiming are poltergeist activity as there is with Bigfoot activity. So he said Bigfoot's like a forest poltergeist.
That is interesting. Wow.
Again, I can't verify that one way or the other, but it does have similarities to it. It's like I can't argue that point.
That is wild, isn't it? Wow. Yeah. But it is sometimes I've found this through the years. Sometimes it's really hard to differentiate what it is you're dealing with because of the bleed through of these things from one to the other. Like sometimes, alien visitation / abduction sounds really very similar to hauntings and possessions and stuff. And it's like there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference in some cases.
If you look back, and this actually, this ties back into my local area, but you listen to people that talk about fae experiences, like fairy folk.
Yeah.
You used to get abducted by fairies. Well, nowadays you get abducted by aliens.
Right.
And it's the thing. People had missing time. They'd get taken somewhere else. They'd get brought back. Maybe all these things that people are experiencing are all from the same exact thing that's been going on for years. But as we evolve and get more wiser, these things have gotten to evolve too, to become more relevant to what we experience today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying it's aliens, but maybe the fae folk, or what people considered fairy folk back in the day, are the same things that we were considering aliens today.
That's a great point. I think it was the Sasquatch Chronicles episode where Wes was talking about somebody, or the person was talking about, either Wes was explaining this story on an episode or somebody was telling the story, but they saw this little micro person, like a gnome sized person or being, and all of a sudden it like saw them and shot off and running, and they saw it run over to like what looked like a barrel that was kind of like by this power pole. It jumped in the barrel, and the next thing you know, the barrel's flying up in the air, and away it goes. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe, right?
See, I interviewed someone a couple years ago with a similar story, but there was no barrel. That they were walking down this little trail.
Mm-hmm.
He sent me pictures of the footprints, and he said this little thing come. It was almost the way he described it reminds me of what people consider puckwudgies, but this was in Florida, and he said it was like very dirty looking, like almost like it was like covered in like leaves or something. Like it was more like trying to like camouflage itself and like covered in mud and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But they took a step and it ran out of from the side of the pathway that they were walking because they were back there as teenagers smoking and doing stuff that kids are not supposed to be doing around adults.
Sure.
This thing took off running and it ran down the little pathway. And he sent me the photos and they do look like little humanoid footprints that were in this like little dirt sandy pathway that they were going on. So I don't know. Maybe he made the footprints up to try and, you know what I mean? Like you can't verify things like this, but
yeah.
But from around here, we have quote unquote Hobbit land. Now I've heard this term for years, and like people from the 70s talk about Hobbit land because out near the Mississinawa Reservoir, which is where all this activity happens, there's a spot out there called Hobbit land because people had started seeing little Native American looking people. Like little people. And there's also people that have talked about seeing little humanoid creatures out there, which again sounds more like the whole puckwudgie things. So are the little people, like the little Native American looking people, and then the puckwudgies, are they the same thing or are they two different things completely? But someone had talked about seeing what looked like a little human, like dark skin, dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was gone. Like they tried to talk to it and they turned back around and it disappeared.
Wow.
So I don't know how you explain something like that.
Well, you know, kind of like Bigfoot, you know, it's this story that's been global. There's cultures all around the world that have sightings of these huge human-like beings that look kind of like a cross between a gorilla and a man, and they have different names for them. But I found the similarity is also with these little people reports that there are just as many of these legends globally of these little diminutive people, proto-pygmies, or whatever you want to call them. And it kind of stands to reason that this is probably a global phenomena everywhere as well. But the question is, and I got to ask you, because as someone that interviews a lot of people too, sometimes you hear claims of things that are like, wow, do you think that they're multidimensional? Have you put any thought into this? Or where do you land on the spectrum of things like that? Like, well, it was there and then it wasn't. And, you know, are these things coming in through portals or, you know what I mean? I'm snowballing a huge bunch of things into one question. But first of all, what is your take on the global possibility of these things? And then second of all, how do you feel about some of the explanations? So, I mean, and I'm not trying to put you on Front Street here. I'm just curious because honestly, as a fellow, person host, I get stuck sometimes because I always want to conceptualize this stuff and I always want to run it through my logic filters and a lot of this stuff you can't. And so you're left with these weird anomalies and what do you do with that?
If you asked me this question a few years ago, it'd be completely different.
Oh, okay.
The response. I think a lot of this stuff is connected and exactly how, I have no idea. But I feel like with people seeing these little things, and again, I kind of said it a little bit earlier, like when people talked about being abducted by aliens, how it sounds like face stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe these things, and this is where I struggle with, but if there is a spirit realm, like obviously if there's ghost or some sort of spirits or energy or whatever, maybe they're on a different plane of existence than we are. So maybe these things live amongst that realm and sometimes they bleed into our realm. So when people are getting taken away, maybe these little fey folk or whatever they actually are grab people and bring them to that paranormal side, the spirit realm. And maybe sometimes when they're in our world, they have to abide by our three-dimensional physics. So that could explain why people see Bigfoot or these dogmen things. And then maybe that explains why they disappear, because they've left our world again. But that would explain why sometimes there's footprints or sometimes there's tree breaks or scat or anything like that. Because if they're an actual flesh and blood type of thing, I feel like there'd be bodies.
Okay.
And we've never found a body that I'm aware of that anyone really knows of. I mean, people claim they've shot these things. People have seen these things. I've seen something. So if we're seeing it, I don't think everyone's crazy. I might be crazy, but I don't think everyone that's out there talking about it might be crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But for me, it's like, why has there been no bones? Why have we not uncovered any sort of, look at Dogman, for instance. There's nothing biological that's ever walked upright in a canine form. Like, biologically, that's just not how canines work. So, where did it evolve from?
Yeah.
I can get behind Bigfoot as being some sort of hominid ancestor, but I can't get behind the fact that we've never uncovered any actual bones or anything to prove that they are here right now. But I can't explain the footprints. I can't explain the hair. I can't explain the noises. So you have to add all this back in together. So I believe there's something out there. But then you put a paranormal aspect to it or a supernatural element to it, or as I try and say, otherworldly, because that's just my term to use to explain things that I can't explain. Like, it doesn't make any sort of sense. So I say there's a lot of otherworldly activity out there that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because if you add it all up, it seems like all these things are happening, but we can't explain it. But where these things go? Where do these things disappear to? Where are these things, like, where the foot track, like if you're following footprints of Bigfoot, how come there's only like one track? Where the other track? Yeah. Where did it disappear to? When it hid behind a tree, all of a sudden this 8-foot tall thing just disappeared. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So if they disappear, they have to go somewhere. So do they go to a different plane of existence?
Yeah, that's $1 million question, isn't it? Like, what is the nature of the reality we're in? But you're right. I struggle with those things too, because it's obviously has mass, because they leave footprints. They affect the world around them. They're seen eating. People have seen them eating roadkill, or they've killed things. They've observed them kill things, like running down deer and all of this stuff. So there is a physicality to them, but then that's kind of like basically the topic for my last podcast was like, but it seems like it's potentially something more, and that's where we can't get to. But I guess, when you think about it, if you went back to the 1800s and tried to explain people about cell phones and what that would be like, they'd be like, I can't understand that. I don't have an understanding for that. And maybe there will come a time when that will make sense. But right now, we're the 1800 cell phone people going, I don't understand. We know that it's happening, or, it seems fairly possible that people are seeing and experiencing these events, and I don't doubt them. I don't pretend to have that kind of platform where I can decide what's true and what's not. I know I've talked to people that I believe, absolutely I believe, but still, what do you do with it? But that's why I think this stuff is amazing, because I think it's bringing us to more understanding, if that makes sense.
This is one of the things that I've thought about, and this just could be my own way of rationalizing stuff. But what if the things that people are seeing, we're actually seeing what it wants us to see it as? So and I'm not trying to get all, I this post today that not everything's demons, but
I saw that. That was good.
what if whatever these things actually are, when they enter our world, they choose what they want to be? And this is because I'm kind of a nerd and I played a lot of video games back in the day where you could fly around and make your own map and stuff, like some of the old shooter games, like you can make your own things here and there. Well, what if when they come in there and you're flying around the world, you see, in the old game used to be like an orb. You'd fly around and you'd be hovering around here, then you'd drop down and make your character. What if some of these things that we see are orbs or something just like that? Not saying we're in a video game, but what if these things channel into our reality and take the shape of whatever they're choosing to see? So when we see them, or whatever they chose to be when we see them, if that makes any sort of sense, or if I'm just need to put my tinfoil hat on, I don't know.
No, I think that's fascinating. It's a fascinating concept because, I mean, obviously, whatever it is, and that's what I like to say in the course of my shows. It's like, look, there's no wrong answers. We just don't know what the answer is. So any idea is just as valid as any other. But I actually like that because what does the act of something manifesting into our world look like? It could look like an orb of energy that suddenly coalesces into something, and that makes sense. It makes as much sense as anything else.
The reason I get to that point is if you go back to my original encounter, the first thing that we saw on the road was walking. It didn't have a head. It didn't have arms. It was just a torso and legs, but it was really thick and black. And when I drove past it, I didn't see fur. I didn't see any definitive details. And the way it was moving was very glitchy. It was moving unnaturally, like it was phasing in and out of our reality. I just interviewed someone else that saw something very similar. He said when it was moving, it looked like it was moving on like fast forward, like sometimes like skipping a scene, like you're watching something like a scene would miss, so like you'd just skip.
Yep.
That is very reminiscent to what I would see in this thing moving. And I've never talked to anyone else that has ever like said it in that sort of phrasing before. So I was like, holy crap, this guy actually may have saw the same thing that I did, because the way he described it is very reminiscent. Mm-hmm. And by that, what would it be skipping from if it's phasing in and out?
Right.
And when we came back, we saw this dog and it was laying in the road. Well, then when the dog walked away, it was like in a weird position, not naturally walking away. And then we saw a mouse. You mentioned earlier, you said skinwalker, which I'll just call them shapeshifters for around here. But
sure,
what if this thing was manifesting itself and the first form that we saw was whatever this thing walking was, and then it turned into this dog creature, and then it morphed itself maybe into this mouse creature that was standing bipedally between us, which I know mice can stand up on their hind legs.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's the timing of why the hell was there a mouse here too? Like, of all the things going on, where'd the mouse come from?
It is interesting. Wow. Yeah.
So, but we'll just toss the mouse out, just say the mouse has nothing to do with any of this. But the first thing walking, it didn't have definitive shape. And then it takes the form of a dog, but then when it walks away, it's walking away in some weird, unnatural way of walking. Maybe it's manifesting itself to our world and it was out of energy, so that's why it was laying in the road, and then we just disturbed it as it just so happens to just pop into our world. That's
fascinating. In getting back to the orb thing, it also occurred to me, it's like all life that becomes a part of this world starts as a sphere. You know, we do in utero, eggs, right. Like everything comes in as a sphere. So that's kind of interesting as well. It's like this universal entry manner in which things become a part of this world. Huh. That's kind of cooking my bacon, brother.
If you look into space, and not to offend anyone that doesn't believe in space or that we're on a spinning ball, but just say Earth is round, mm-hmm. planets are round, the suns are round, like everything seems to be round like an orb.
Mm-hmm.
So even our galaxy, like obviously expands and everything else, but it's got some roundness to it.
Right.
Like if you look at a picture of the galaxy, it's rounded because
Yep.
everything's expanding outwards in a 3-dimensional direction.
Yep.
But what is that making? A rounded orb look.
Yep. That's
So
fascinating.
all life stems from something round.
Jaron from Supernatural Station podcast says they're moving freely for sure, but don't you think the government hasn't covered up millions of dead bodies? Where are you at with that, Brandon?
I believe if they are, someone would have said something at this point.
Okay.
Just because, like the game of telephone, you can tell somebody something and it gets changed here and there, but the story still gets spread. So you might meet some people that say, hey, we can't talk about this. Later on down the road, someone's going to be like, hey, I came out and I used to hide dead bodies of cryptids. What do they do to that person when he comes out? Do they instantly silence him?
Sure. Good point. No.
Look at Bob Lazar from Area 51 back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He came out, he was on TV and everything. He's still alive.
Yeah.
Discredit the person, but I've not yet seen a story of someone going around other than maybe a couple people that have been on a podcast that claim that they went around and collected dead bodies or covered up Bigfoot accidents or anything. Like I've heard stories of where like this Mount St. Helens where they're flying out Bigfoots and all these other stories.
Yep.
But if that's true, a lot of people would know about it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to keep a lot of people quiet and to keep a secret, especially something of that magnitude.
Sure, but then on the same point, we do hear stories like the Kandahar giant out of Afghanistan,
Right.
Which apparently came from them. So I mean, it could. You're right, though. I mean, everybody is just going to keep their lips closed. Probably not. Probably not.
Like, as me being a conspiracy type person, I would love to say, yeah, the government's hiding everything, but at the same time, it's realistically, when you start to think about it, it's like you can't depend on everyone keeping that secret because clearly there's things that happen.
Yeah.
That we'll just throw up the old Bill Clinton thing. There's things that happen in the White House that didn't get kept as a secret.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
good point. Yeah. Jane Beebe makes an observation from Facebook, and she says, I've been learning recently about spiritualism, whatever thoughts, which is energy out in the universe, it can become reality. So I suppose these things can be attracted to you.
I've actually heard this idea before that some of the times the reason that people have experiences and they see things and other people don't is because we ourselves are bringing these things to us. And by that, there's something about us specifically that attracts the weird energy.
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that or don't agree with it, but at the same time, someone also said that the reason I saw what I saw is because I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is where I'm supposed to be at right now.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is interesting. You're right. I've heard plenty of stories of perception, and it comes up in ghosts investigating all the time. Like a group of people will be in an investigation, and like let's say it's a group of 5, 3 people might hear a scream, like, oh my God, what was that? And 2 people might be like, I didn't hear anything. So I mean, some of this stuff maybe isn't happening as physical as we think it is. Like maybe perhaps it's energetic, or it's the filters of the people. Like there was another story that I believe was from Ronnie LeBlanc, and he said that he was talking to a guy, and I'm going to paraphrase it probably really badly, but I'll get the gist of it right. Basically, there's 3 guys. One's an absolute staunch believer in Bigfoot, and the other one is a friend of his who's open to the idea but hasn't seen anything and wasn't really convinced. And then there's a third friend who is absolutely convinced it's a bunch of bunk. And so they go out to this area where there's a lot of reports happening, and they're wandering around and in this like logging road or whatever. And sure enough, out on the trail in front of them steps this giant Bigfoot. And the guy that was all in, believing and really amped up about this, was like, yes, he was able to see it and recount details of every little bit that he saw, the way the hands looked, the face, the eyes, the mouth. And then the guy that was open to the idea was able to observe a Bigfoot like silhouette step out, but all he could see was this silhouette. The third guy that was right there with them saw absolutely nothing. So perception has to play into this a lot.
Just with what we saw that night and how my coworker was hell-bent on it being just a normal dog.
Yeah.
And me being like, normal dogs don't walk like that.
Yeah.
How do you rationalize that with someone? Like, you both seen the same thing, but one swears it's just normal. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want people thinking he's crazy. So I think he saw more than what he wanted to let on. He just didn't want to be admitting that.
True.
And you could have people that have seen like a Bigfoot, and to someone else, maybe the Bigfoot wasn't a Bigfoot at all, but it was just a deer running through the woods, but they didn't actually see it. They just heard the noises. The other person says they saw Bigfoot, and then the other person doesn't believe in Bigfoot, so they're like, no, it's just a deer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which I say that in a sense because one of the stories that I was told from when I interviewed someone, when they were at one of the battlegrounds, this is the ones that was doing the paranormal investigation, they saw something peek around a tree at them, which is funny because I interviewed someone else that mentioned the same exact thing and I was like, I wonder if they knew each other, but they don't. They maybe had been together and it was the same story, but they were two different people, different times, and they don't know each other.
Okay.
But the one Bigfoot was peeking behind a tree at them, and then when they noticed it, it took off running, and it ran across the river. And by run across the river, it couldn't have been a person in a suit, because have you heard of anyone being able to run in a Bigfoot suit through a river?
No.
They heard splashing, and it ran all the way across the river. So I went out there a couple weeks ago. There was some couple of college boys wanting to go out and interview people that look for Bigfoot. So I agreed to be in it. So I took them out there to go Bigfoot hunting, and we got to an area where this all had happened. We started to go into the woods. We started hearing, and it was honestly probably just an owl or a fox, but it sounded like something shrieking. And the more that we went into the woods, the louder it got, and they decided that they were done filming. And they said they had enough footage. So I was like, it's just getting interesting, and we're starting to get activities out here. We're starting to hear footprints. We heard some tree snap, but then we left. So I'm like, is it just normal forest noises, though? Is it just a deer? Is it just, we heard something that sounded like a duck, unless Bigfoot's out there mimicking ducks. But there's just, you don't know what actually you're hearing unless you're familiar with the woods. And like the shrieking sounded to me more like an owl, but it sounded like a woman screaming, which there was a lot of reports that there was women noise, like women and young girls screams from the woods, and they're trying to lure you out there because of all the bad things that happened to the original Native Americans, or the spirits are trying to lure the white settlers back out there to avenge the spirit. I was like, there's so much stuff that's made up nowadays that it's hard to know what's true or not true, but you listen to the legends and like, oh, was I hearing the little girl screaming? Or was it just a barn owl? You know?
Right.
So what are people actually hearing? Again, I'm always trying to rationalize things in the most logical explanation. So I'm always going to try and rule things out. I went out on paranormal investigations before with people to one of these areas, and their meters were jumping. So there's spirits here. There's spirits here. Well, just because your meter jumped doesn't mean there's an actual spirit here, but
sure.
So I don't know. Like I said, I try and remain skeptical on a lot of it just until I can't explain it. If I can't explain it, then I'll start leaning toward more supernatural.
I'm kind of with you there. It's tough to make calls on a lot of this, and certainly with with investigating, it's there's a lot of assumptions that you're making because we can't see real good in the dark and we can't really tell what's going on, but we make assessments. But there is a huge confirmation bias, and I'm guilty of the same thing. Like when I go investigating for ghosts, I want everything to be a ghost, but I can't divorce my logical sense and say that everything is a ghost. But it's tough. What is your take about? Okay, so obviously we've heard the term rake, the pale crawlers, rakes. I think it's a rebranding of ghouls. But what's your take on things like that being out there?
Funny that you asked. I found this and it was posted, I think, in 2015. But someone had made a post on Reddit, so we all know what Reddit is.
Yeah.
So take it with a grain of salt, but I don't know why it was posted unless they were doing it for entertainment purposes. But it was pretty sure it was a lady driving home from a friend's house, and they just so happened to be going down this road, which is actually part of the reservoir road, which was going over the dam, and she saw a quote unquote pale, naked, rat-looking man running along the side of the road. And then when they got to the edge of the guardrail, it darted off in the woods, but she thought it was like a crazy crackhead guy running naked down the side of the road. But the way she described it, he was running naturally on all fours. She thought, and if I remember right, it was described as like a hairless looking pale man. I was like, well, that sounds very pale crawler-esque to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just that's the only one I've heard of for this area. Again, we've heard some weird things. One of the more weirder ones that I've heard recently, flying humanoids. And the thing that gets me about this is the way it's described. Now, I've only gotten secondhand versions of the story. I haven't actually talked to the people that seen it. I was only told by someone else that had told. So again, I can't verify one way or the other. But supposedly 2 separate people back in the winter of last year, so 2020 into 2023 into 2024, they were on their way home, and the one lady had saw what looked like a man in a trench coat walking in the middle of the road. And as soon as they got close into the headlights, he opened up his trench coat, and it wasn't a trench coat. There were wings wrapped around him.
Oh, wow.
And he just levitated up and flew over, but like, he never used the wings. It was just like levitated up and flew off. And then someone else had said that they'd seen someone standing on the edge of the woods, and they just floated up in the air and then went over the trees. So that's 2 different people that have reported seeing 2 different people floating up in the air and then flying off. So the day that I was told that story, I called my friend up and I said, hey, I just got a report about flying humans out by the dam. You want to go with me? So he's like, yeah, I'll go. And then we took my son with me. I said, we're going to use him as live bait.
Fair enough.
And we drove out there, and clearly we never found anything, but we did find 2 teenage kids that somehow backed their vehicle down into a ditch, and we're trying to push it out. So we got out and helped them. So like again, things happen for a reason. We were out there driving around looking for flying humans and found 2 stuck teenagers.
So you were able to be there for a purpose. That's good.
Right.
Those winged humanoids reports. I know Lon Strickler's been really doing a lot with that with the up in the Chicago Great Lakes region. But there's a report. I mean, if they're in Chicago and in Illinois, it doesn't seem too hard to believe they would also be in Indiana because that's regionally pretty close. Yeah.
We're only about 2 hours from Chicago.
Yeah. There's a ton of reports coming from out of that region.
On the way out there, this was actually one of the funnier things to the story. We're on our way out there, and I'm telling my buddy about what I was told. He's like, sounds like what our friend Mitch said. I was like, I don't know a Mitch, but who is it? What did he see? And he said that this guy was driving along this road, which the road's like 124 out towards Miss Sinwell, and him and his wife had saw something eating roadkill on the side of the road. And then when they got close to when the headlights hit it, it looked up from eating the roadkill and took off flying. And he swore it was a gargoyle. I was like, well, it could have been an owl, I guess. But they said, no, it was like a human that had wings and it like took off flying.
Oh.
Like, I don't know who Mitch is, but I've still yet to ever talk to the guy. But I want to talk to him now because you don't hear too many people talking about gargoyles nowadays.
No, but I love those stories because I think that for every legend there's some starting point, and certainly gargoyles are the artwork on cathedrals supposed to scare off evil and all of that. But the living versions of those, I think those stories are compelling.
Mm-hmm. The thing about a lot of this stuff is, again, we're a very small area. So you add in the paranormal stuff that we have here. You add in the cryptid stuff, the UFO stuff, the flying people, the Pukwudgies, all of the old Native American stuff, the sacred lands, the military base. I was told the reason they built the dams over the river was because the rivers were on top of where they built the dams were artesian wells. So if that's true, that's another high energy area.
Right.
So it goes back to what you said before. Is like, did they pick these areas specifically to build bases and stuff because of all of the high energy that could be in these areas?
Mm-hmm.
So I think yes.
I do too. I think that it's not nearly as random as it might seem. Like there's a method, and it's not just positioning. I think that certainly is part of it, but they probably seek out those areas pretty specifically for any number of reasons. I can only speculate, but I also don't think that it's random. I just don't.
There's also the weirdness here too that, and again, you might need a foil hat for this one, but this goes down the rabbit hole of the circus. And there are things about the circus here, like, I don't know how to make this sound sensical without sounding crazy, but let's just say that take it like, what did Stephen King write it about? Well, it was about this clown looking thing, but it's actual an entity. It took the form of the clown.
Right.
And what if there are things here that decided to set up camp here to feed on the energy of the people? So if you're along the waterways, which again, we have the Mississinapi that runs into the Wabash, and the Wabash runs into the Eel. Wabash keeps going. It connects to Deer Creek, and it keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
All these rivers connect, and I started going down the rabbit hole of the rivers, and I've started to see all these little patterns. And that's why I call this area the Mississinapi Triangle, because I started to full on conspiracy nut here. I started plotting things on a board, and I was like, well, this happened up here. This happened down here. I was like, oh my, it took a shape of a triangle, like the farthest north to the farthest east and the south. Like you can make a triangle out of it, which that's technically you can make a triangle out of anything, but that's just this random area of all these different sightings in this small location. I was like, there's got to be something more to it. So when I started to dig into the circus stuff, think about the type of people that were attached to the circus. They didn't always have the greatest of people as carnies.
Yeah, that's true.
And then if you wanted to travel and escape and do crimes in a different town, you'd be gone a couple days later. So you never knew what was going on in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So, and I can't verify this, but in that same area is also where the mob back from Chicago, you brought up Chicago with Mothman, they used to come down here back in the Prohibition days, and they had a hideout down here, and supposedly they were dumping rival members into the river.
Jeez. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a superstorm on a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. It's just amazing. But the thing that I think has always really just amazed me is that the amount of things that people do encounter, that there's this whole catalog of possibilities. And it's kind of interesting that the correlations that you made about that, like the little people, like maybe there's several of these are all the same thing, but it's perception of the individual seeing it that differentiates it. Like maybe there is more universality in it, and that actually I think is good, because while I do think anything is possible, but is everything probable? And I don't think that that's the case. I don't think it can be. But when you're dealing with perceptions, you're getting a filtered version of an event that goes through a person's paradigm, their observation skills, and it gets recounted based upon that. So that could be a lot of the variations we experience in these encounters.
I've not talked to someone personally that my voice is going.
Oh no, you're doing good.
I've been fine all day, so I don't know why it's happening now.
You're in the portal. Weird things happen here all the time. Strangeness is what we do.
Yeah. I've never talked to someone that actually saw like an actual little person, but I have talked to people with the puck wedgies. So I don't really know how to correlate the little people version.
Yeah, I don't need either. But I again, there's those little diminutive people in Montana where they found some of the mummies in this mountain, and I can't remember the specifics. Too many names floating around in my head, but they found these mummified little 2.5 feet people that were up in the mountains of Montana, and they were apparently well known to the native tribes there, to the First Nations through their histories and stuff. And then there's duendes, there's gnomes, there's pukwudgies, there's goblins, there's just this whole host of these little smaller things. And yeah, it's pretty intense.
I think the goblin stuff is interesting because like the Kentucky goblin story itself,
Mm-hmm.
we're not that far from Kentucky either.
That's true.
So I talked to someone from southern Indiana, and they swore they saw something look like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
That to me sounded like a typical goblin look.
Right. That's a good point, because I think I just covered a story just the other night about somebody seeing a golem kind of thing, And again, you think that maybe it's fiction bleeding into reality, but maybe these things have always been here, but, we just find similarities, so it becomes Gollum. It's not Gollum, but it's something that evokes that imagery of this little Gollum. But then again, that could be pale crawlers, too, a lot of times. They look like golems,
Yeah. I've just tried to think like maybe the things that we're seeing and what they're seeing, again, we all are calling it something different, but what if like the Dover demon?
Mm.
The description of that sounded like what people could consider today like a pale crawler. And then you can throw the Kentucky goblins into that. You can also throw in what people are calling rakes, which that was a creepypasta, but it's now what everyone refers to these things as, like you say, ghouls. And what if they're all the same thing? We're just calling them something different.
Yes. I think that there's a lot of that. And I think that was probably the case for the Bigfoot stories around the world, because like people had their regional titles for it. And so there was no correlating, oh, that's the same thing, until a term like Bigfoot came around. And then people got word of this Bigfoot reports from from California or whatever, when it kind of made the national awareness. But then people were like, wait, well, we got skunk apes here, but God, that sounds just like a Bigfoot. Or we've got Momo in Missouri, or Grassmen in Ohio, and all of these regional names that were kind of floating around as their own regional thing, kind of tied together, and people went, oh, maybe these things are everywhere.
Do you know the movie, The Descent?
I recognize the title. I just don't remember what it was or if I did see it.
It was about these pale humanoids that lived in a cave. It was like a horror movie.
Okay.
And it's made me think, I was like, not to say that the movie's based on reality, but what if some of those stories that people are talking about influenced the making of that movie? Because these things are like humanoid creatures. I think in the movie they were supposedly like miners that evolved, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah.
But what if the creatures themselves are based off of the things that people are actually seeing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's what is it? Life imitates art. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that a lot of these ideas do probably come from folklore and legends, and people embellish them and create these fantastic storylines. But like the Tommyknockers, have been kind of several things. Some people define Tommyknockers as these little physical things that appear, or some people are like they're a haunting spirit. Some people regard them as an omen of a impending collapse or whatever. But what are they? Well, maybe there's some kind of subterranean creatures that kind of pop out every once in a while.
Again, that was Stephen King, wasn't it?
For the Tommyknockers?
Yeah.
Well, it's an actual mining term, though.
Did he write a show called or a book called that too?
I think you're right. I didn't read it, but yeah, now that you mention it, it's like, oh yeah, I think that is a title.
Stephen King is a weird person in the sense that a lot of the things that he writes about come off as things that people experience. So again, like going back to the whole it thing and the clowns here.
Mm-hmm.
Why are people universally afraid of clowns?
That's a great question. Yeah.
What is it about them that make people freak out? Again, it's kind of like the big hair, the big shoes, the big goofy looking faces. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that is because they're almost uncanny to humans, but they're not quite human.
That's a good point.
And then there's an author out there that claims that they're Nephilim, which I don't really.
Oh, yeah. Everything's Nephilim to some people.
Right.
Bigfoot are Nephilim and clowns and yeah, everything's Nephilim. And I don't pretend to know. So I mean, I don't mean to sound dismissive of it, but well, I kind of do. But it just doesn't make sense to me a whole lot.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of it. So, what about the ghostly realm? What's your take on all of that? Do you have experiences of your own?
We do here at home, and we don't talk about it very much anymore.
Are you allowed to talk about it? Or will you get in trouble?
I don't talk about it because I try not to give it energy.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
But I don't mind mentioning some things. My daughter had an imaginary friend. She told us when I questioned her about it, it was a ghost. And then we've just had weird things happen here and there. So I just don't, I don't want to try and give something energy. You know what I mean?
I do, and I think that's a great take on it. But yeah, certainly by giving it energy, it's almost a permission, because I do find a correlation in all of the stories in my own research that hauntings seem to require permission, whether it's implied or expressed. And I think that some permission can be doing just that, like you said, talking about it, like you're acknowledging its presence, and that somehow strengthens it. But other implied consent or permission is fear. Like when you surrender to something out of fear, then you're empowering its ability to express itself some more. I don't understand the mechanics of it, but it definitely always starts out very similarly. Some weird things happen, a weird vibe, and then suddenly, it's kind of freaking you out. And then, the cereal bowl move. That's my classic example of weird things that happen. And then it goes to door slamming, and then it goes to something more. But it does seem to require a permission of sorts, and so I'm not sure how that works, but. There was a comment here. I wanted to get to this before we move too far away from it. But Rachel in the chat says Stephen King's Tommyknockers was a crashed alien ship that mutated the population into the aliens and turned them into genius intelligences. They could build all kinds of machines. Oh, okay. Thank you for that background. That wasn't really a question. John Temperan's asking the thought process can get you something you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
I think with the stuff here, I don't necessarily think it's bad, but I don't also know.
Sure.
So my daughter had scratches on her back. I don't know of anything good that would scratch her.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
But we haven't had any sort of weird stuff happening for a while. So I'm hoping by doing what I did, got rid of it.
Oh, good. Okay.
So
yeah, I hope so too.
Now we just don't want to bring it back, so I don't really talk about it.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Certainly, yeah, you don't want to reintroduce the problem. But you talk to a lot of people that have experienced that kind of stuff.
They, a lot of the paranormal stuff that we talk about for around here, it all seems to tie into more or less just the typical, like, haunted house experiences. There's nothing been extraordinary when it comes to that. Someone told me that they had a big black mass, again, an orb, that came down from their ceiling.
Oh.
That was like a big ball of energy. This was about the size of a basketball, I think he said it was. But other than that, like, I haven't had any local people talk about any of that stuff. I've talked to people here and there, but I don't have a whole lot of paranormal interviews on my show.
Okay, gotcha. Now, with things like getting back to the cryptids and stuff, do you feel that there is a concerted efforts by the official channels to not acknowledge this stuff as far as cryptids and creatures? Do you think that there is a knowledge that they have, but they're not going to, kind of like the whole disclosure movement with UFOs, but I don't know what we'd call it, dealing with the cryptids, but do you feel that there's a concerted effort to keep it unacknowledged?
I think if they have the knowledge that they exist, they're not telling anyone about it.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons. Let's just say Bigfoot is an actual primate in the woods. Think about what it does to the logging industry.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's an endangered species, there's something else. Well, what if they don't have it contained, so people are going to be afraid it's going to come get in their house?
Mm.
So I think like mass hysteria is one of the things that they would use as an excuse as to why they didn't do it. Just like they claim people can't know about aliens because they're not ready for it. So I think that would be, if these things are real, that would be the excuse the government does, is it covers it up for the sense of preventing mass hysteria, quote unquote.
Sure. Now, do you think, we haven't really talked about this yet, but we've talked a little bit about UFOs, but do you think, in your opinion, will we ever get to the point of disclosure with the U.S. government?
I don't know if it'll happen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
It might eventually, if something actually does fly down here and like, oh, it's like, you're here. Yeah. But I don't see them coming forward and just being like, yep, we've been lying for 80 plus years, but believe us now, we're telling you the truth.
Yeah, once they show up in the sky, it's like, well, I guess we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. Literally, yeah. I think so. Have you talked or explored the Three Eye Atlas stuff that's been going on?
I was doing a weekly update on it, but I haven't done one of my little solo shows here the last couple of weeks. But I just assumed it was a comet. I know the guy from Harvard says it's a mothership, but
Yeah, Avi Loeb. Yeah, I think it's fascinating, but I do think whether or not it is an alien craft really, probably to me, it just doesn't matter because I really know that they're here already. So do you think that it changes the game if it is, or is that just now my voice? Look at that. It's spread.
so I was thinking about this the other day. If let's just say that this actually is a ship, do you think that they would still tell us that it was a ship? Like if they had proof that it was an actual ship and they got it on, like everyone detected it, they say, are they still going to say it's a comet?
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll change anything unless it's coming here. And from what everyone's saying, it's not heading this direction.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I haven't really heard anything lately, so I was kind of curious what's been going on with it.
It's on the other side of the sun, I thought they said. So we wouldn't be able to see it right now.
There was a prediction, though, that it would reach its closest point to the Earth on December 19th. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when they claim it to be visible for everyone and they know what it is.
Oh,
This
okay.
is the conspiracy side of it. The conspiracy UFO people believe that this is actually not even a real thing. It's more or less Project Bluebeam.
Oh. Well, that's interesting.
There was something that came out back in the early January, and Jeremy Corbell was the one that did the interview, and he's the guy that does a lot of the disclosure stuff with George Knapp. But he said something was coming, and they're gonna put it in to be like more than what it actually is. So I was like, I wonder if this Atlas 3 or whatever is what he was referring to months ago.
Oh.
And they're going to try and say that, oh, that actually was an alien thing to get people all riled up, but that's not what it was. So I don't know.
Good point. Yeah.
I also don't know how he has that information, but.
Well, yeah, there's undisclosed sources, of course. T-Bone is asking, kind of in the same vein, does Brandon have an opinion of the drone incursions that are happening all over?
I do, actually, because we have a lot of them around here. So last year in October, there was tons of them everywhere. Someone said they seen one that was about the size of a Volkswagen, and we were told that they were just normal commercial drones. Nothing to see here. And then a couple of weeks ago, I saw a news article claiming that some unnamed military contractor says that they were the ones responsible for a lot of the drone activity last year.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So if there were really drones and they weren't ours, I feel like our military would have shot them down. So I don't know. For me around here, I know people do have drones.
Sure.
So I can't say that they aren't drones. But at the same time, I've seen weird orange lights in the sky. We just seen some about a month ago. And then when I said something about it, as soon as I mentioned it, my wife and kids seen it, and then it just disappears.
Oh.
I don't know of drones disappearing.
Yeah, I've not heard of that.
Especially right after we acknowledge it. So that's a weird one.
That is. Maybe they're watching you. They're tapped in on you. No.
The truth of it is, like the foil, we don't have actual tinfoil anymore. And this is what's funny. We use aluminum foil. And the stereotype of the conspiracy person is you wear a tinfoil hat. Obviously, where the name of the show came from. They stopped using tin in foil years ago. And then if you look into it, and I forget where I seen this at, but tin was a way of blocking out different frequencies.
Oh.
It was used to, they figured out with studies or whatever, as blocking out some sort of frequencies or whatever. I was like, I wonder if that's why people were saying they wear that on your head.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where that whole thing came from.
I don't know either. That's a great question. I guess maybe just by virtue of it being metallic and shielding from radio waves and stuff. But yeah.
I know like the movie Signs made it popular, but
Yeah.
it was around before that.
Yeah, it's been around forever since I think there's probably references to that even back into the 50s, maybe.
Yeah. So, but now nowadays you don't get tin, you just get aluminum. And apparently the aluminum foil doesn't protect you from the gamma rays or radio waves or whatever it is that you're supposed to be protected from.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, damn it.
I don't know how I got on that rabbit hole, but I got down that one and I was like, oh, so wearing a foil hat today doesn't actually help anybody.
No, probably not. Not unless you can get some tin. You could probably make a tin hat, though.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
That's very funny. Yeah, Mark Flanagan is in the Facebook and says Tin Man. Yeah, you might have to be a Tin Man. Oh, I think it's Jackie Hall says drone war games. Yeah, I suppose could all of that just be some kind of war games exercise?
I feel like if it was not our own military stuff, they would have been more active to try and figure out what it actually was.
Sure. Yep. I think you're probably right. It just, it's kind of like the Chinese spy balloons when they came over. It's like, let's wait till they make it all the way across the continental U.S. and then we'll shoot it down. And then they shot some down up in Canada or whatever as well, too. And it's like, why wasn't there more urgency about that? But
yeah, I don't understand that either.
Yeah, I think we've got a whole lot of question marks about a lot of stuff going on for a long time. But I'm just wondering if disclosure is even important anymore. I mean, do we really need that acknowledgement to move the dialogue forward?
I know Luna, representative, her last name's Luna.
Okay, yeah.
She's still all about it. And she mentioned something last year that caught me off guard. She's mentioned interdimensional. Of all things to say, why did she bring up interdimensional? Mm-hmm. So it's like, is that it's kind of them wanting to push the narrative towards that, or was she actually mentioning some truth behind it? Because they don't call them aliens. They call them non-human intelligence.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So does that mean they're biological, or are they like robotic?
Sure. That's a good
like,
point.
Is there... I interviewed a guy named John Gertz. He used to be the head of SETI. And I agree with what he said. Basically, they're not going to send flesh and blood aliens here to interact with us. They're going to send drones. They're going to send probes. So maybe the things that we see, we say like, oh, there's aliens here and they're doing this and that. Well, they'd have been here for a long time.
Yeah.
Because if you think about how big space is, unless they have ways to bend space and wrap it around.
Sure.
Just the distances doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So if you go into that aspect to it, he said that for them, they're probably billions of years older than humans. So maybe they were here in dinosaur ages. And then they come back, another probe comes back in another 50 billion or million years. And then, so maybe the things we're just seeing now are just their probes sending signals back.
Yeah, good point. I was just wondering about like the ancient alien theory What do you think of that? Do you think they've been here and kind of coaching us along potentially?
I think I have various opinions on that.
Hmm.
I think some of it could have been, but I also think that we're not giving our own people, like our own ancestors, credit to build things.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that they weren't influenced by something, but at the same time, we've built a lot of cool things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't discount that as well, but I just think about like Puma Punku, that's the big one I always bring up. It's, those basically machined granite slabs that are like, so form fitting. And then you see rocks look like they were melted into place and they've, got even, sagging points where it looks like it was almost liquid when it was put in and then allowed to
Right.
harden. And it's hard to imagine anybody carving granite or like kind of rock with brass tools, the Bronze Age kind of thing. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think, like, if you look at the pyramids in general, some of the size of those stones were so massive.
Yeah.
And then the amount of time and people that it would have took to do that work. But you also have to consider that Egypt wasn't the only place there was pyramids. They found them in South America. I'm pretty sure there's some in China. Why were the ancient people all building the similar things, all separated by oceans?
Yeah.
Like, how did they all evolve to start building similar architecture? Like, where'd they get the idea from? So there had to have been some way of communicating, or again, we all just evolved to know to start building triangular pyramid type
It's a
thing.
genetic imperative.
Right. So I feel like there was some influence to it, but I don't know if it was from outer space or if it was from things that were already maybe here. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the great big question marks. It's so crazy. But I think for me personally doing this journey, again, going kind of full circle, it's like the one thing I've accomplished is realizing how much I don't know. Like I was kind of arrogant when I first started doing this. Like, I can do it, no problem. I know all about this stuff. And then you start digging and you start exploring and you realize, man, we're idiots. We don't know anything.
Right. I don't ever tell anyone I know anything. I'm just a guy with a microphone. Don't take what I say seriously because I don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly. But we obviously we talk to a lot of people, and I guess the other big takeaway for me, and I don't know if this was a shock for you, but is just how prevalent all of this stuff is. Like whether it's hauntings, UFOs, cryptids, strange phenomena, it's literally everywhere. Like it's really a foundational part of our living in this planet, in my opinion. What
It's
would,
been something that has been going on for as long as we've been around. If you look at the stories from just people, I saw a comment earlier, and it was back in France, the beast or whatever they called it. I can't pronounce that word.
Jovadan, yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
and back then they had werewolf trials
yeah,
for people. And you look at the Salem witch trials we had here, you go through Europe, they had stories of werewolves and vampires, and you have this originate, like, I think, I don't know where it came from, but like the trolls in Sweden, and you had elves and the fae folk, and all these stories had to come from something.
right.
Like, what influenced these legends? What influenced the myths, the stories? Like
Mm-hmm.
leprechauns, again, little people. So in Ireland, they're leprechauns. Here in America, they're little Native Americans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy. I don't know, but it's clear that whatever reality is, it's a lot bigger than what we think it is.
Hmm.
Yeah. So we're getting down to the wire here. We don't have a lot left to go, but what's going on with Tinfoil Tales? What have you been up to on there?
been trying to bank some episodes for the winter just so I don't have to record as many. It gives me some time off.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, the podcast was just featured in a Hollywood movie.
Really? That's awesome. Cool.
The movie called Begonia that just came out. It's in theaters right now. Yeah, the guy listens to my podcast when he's riding his bicycle to work, and you hear my voice in the movie and my name and the podcast are in the ending credits. So it's kind of cool.
That's really cool. Oh, that's awesome.
I was hesitant about it because the movie it's Jesse Plemons is a conspiracy theorist, and he kidnaps Emma Stone because he thinks she's an alien.
Okay.
So I went and saw the movie in theaters. It's actually a really good movie. Mm-hmm. And hearing your own voice in a movie and while you're in a movie theater is very surreal.
That's got to be a kick. Yeah, good for you, man.
Yeah. And then we waited to the very end for all the credits, and then saw my name in the podcast. So I had to record it real quick. But
so you're breeding loonies everywhere, then, right?
Well, if someone asked me how did I feel for Jesse's version of me, I was like, okay. So
yeah,
but he did a really good job though. But it is strange. Like I don't want to ruin the movie for anybody, but I do recommend checking it out, and it is pretty cool to hear yourself. But other than that, like I've got CryptidCon next weekend. Oh, so I will be at CryptidCon in Lexington, Kentucky, Saturday and Sunday. That'll be the last event that I'm at in person until sometime next year.
How many cons do you do a year, just out of curiosity?
This year I did 13, and I'm not doing that many ever again. Yeah.
I came to the same conclusion just out of the 4 or 5 I did. It's like, I'm freaking exhausted. I'm tired. I just want to be home now. I just don't want to go anywhere. And go ahead.
I said, with me having a wife and kids, it makes it really hard to travel.
Yeah, same.
And so I'm being very picky about which ones I do next year. So.
Yeah, I think I'll just do it maybe a couple this next year. I don't know, but it depends on what opportunities, what the metrics are for it. But I mean, I like getting out there and meeting people. That to me is exciting, and doing all of that. But it's also, man, it's a lot to go to go across the country and pack up your world and then to be disconnected from your family as well. But can you take a couple minutes, let everybody know where to find Tinfoil Tales, and when do you post new episodes generally?
I do an episode. I was doing 2 a week. Oh. I was doing Tuesdays and Fridays, but I've slacked off to just doing every Tuesday.
Okay.
And pretty much anywhere you find Paranormal Portal, you can find Tinfoil Tales. So the typical Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the good podcatchers.
There you go. Well, thanks again for coming on again, brother. It's been great kicking back and picking your brain about some of this stuff, and really appreciate you being here, man.
Definitely appreciate being here too. Sorry that my voice decided to go in and out on me all night.
That's fine, man. It happens. It happens to me about every night. So, but Jackie Hall said she just subbed. So there you go. You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You owe me one now, Brandon. So that's about going to wrap it up for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Special thank you again to Brandon for being here and doing all the heavy lifting tonight. That was nice. I got to just kind of relax. That's cool. I'll have to have guests more often on here. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see if Mr. Knapp will make an appearance, or get him on the live show. But that's going to wrap it up for us. So again, this is the last live show until next Wednesday. We do these live streams every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. So mark your calendars. Get subscribed if you don't mind. I'd appreciate it. And watch for the new podcast episode on Monday. And that's all I got for you. So you guys remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time, guys, y'all have a good night. Brandon, stick around. I'll talk to you in a minute.
All right. Good night, guys.